Hello and blessings to you. In this video, we are going to go over chapter 23 in our first Hebrew primer, which is the PL pattern. Okay, so up to this point, remember everything that we've talked about has been the kal verb, also known as the pa'al pattern. Now we are going into the PL pattern. Okay, let's start out with a couple of these oral reviews. First we have Hamelech Einenu, Sofer et Kaspo, Lifnei Avedav. Okay, and this is the king, there is not him. So the king maybe is not Sofer counting. So the king is not counting his silver or his money, Lifnei, before his servants. Okay, so we know that this is servants because of this yod right here. And notice the difference between the his money and his servants. Okay, next one is your servants. So again, we have this yod, lets us know servants is plural. Your servants, they counted your bread, all of it, and then they ate it. So putting it together, your servants counted all of your bread, and then they ate it. Okay, let's move on to the vocab. So here, first we have beged, bagadim, beged, bigday is garment or clothing. Next we have bikesh, which means to seek. Berek is bless, so this is beit resh kaf, bless. Maybe a good way to remember this, I'm not making any political statements, but just identifying the name of a politician, Barack Obama. Barack comes from this root, which means bless. We have Dalet Beit Resh is speak. It's used slightly different than Amar, which is to say. So Amar usually is used with actual dialogue, whereas speak usually is not. It will be used in kind of a unique way compared to Amar. Okay, so then we have lema'an, which means in order that, for the sake of. We have safar, we've already learned is count. Now that's in the pa'al. In the p'al, you'll see sifer, which means to recount, or to tell, or to narrate, or even to count again. It's kind of the sense of recount. Okay, instead of maybe having different vocab cards for this sort of thing, you could actually have the same vocab card for both, and just kind of add the PL sense to the vocab card that you've already created. That might be helpful. Next we have petach, petach, which means opening or entrance. You can see it comes from our verbal root patach, which means he opened in that case. And it's also a synonym to another word we've learned, pe, which is mouth or opening. Next we have tzive, which is a command. This comes from our word that we learned, I think, a couple chapters ago now, mitzvah, as in bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, which is commandment or law. So here we have tzava is a command. Ra'av is famine or hunger. If you'll remember, we actually kind of learned this a long time ago in our guided reading of the book of Ruth. In the days of the judges, there was famine in the land. Ra'av. To me, this kind of looks like bad. So ra'ah, or just ra, or rasha, are all kind of bad words. And famine is bad. And so it's not too far of a stretch to go ra'av is famine or hunger. Shakar means to break, but shiver is to smash or destroy. So this is the difference between the pa'al and the pl. Same thing with this next one. We have shalak, which is to send, or shilek, which is to set free, send away. So the difference between the pa'al and the pl. Then our last word is tamid, which just means continually or regularly. Tamid. All right. Well, so in Hebrew, there are 7 verb patterns, and so that's what we're talking about today. These 7 patterns so 6 of them are derived from the first one. And the first one is the one that we've talked about for almost the whole year because it's really the main one. And that's the pa'al or the kal. So pa'al or kal. Remember, kal means simple, and that's because the kal, the pa'al, is the regular one, which just expresses simple action. So that's the whole point of that. Most Hebrew verbs do appear in more than one of these 7 patterns. And when they do, the meaning changes across those patterns. The meaning will usually be related to the meaning in the kal, but it will usually be different as well. Okay? There's still kind of a central idea that's conveyed in that verbal root, and so the different patterns, well, here, you'll kind of see as we get into the PL. So, okay, so the pa'al or the kal verb tense, remember, is simple action. The PL expresses intensification or repetition of that simple action. Okay, so here's some examples of that. These 3 verbs, or rather these 3 verbs, we already know, well, we've learned in this chapter some of these, I think. Well, at least we're learning the PL. But, so we're familiar with these 3 verbs. In the pa'al, they mean shalak, he sent, safar, he counted, shavar, he broke, right? So we're familiar with these verbs. Now in the PL, send becomes send away, or even in that regard, if you're talking about servants or something, you're setting them free, you're sending them away. Counting can take on the idea of recounting. So whereas sending away is like intensification, so not just sending, but really sending, like go away kind of sending. Counting, instead of intensification, is repetition. So it's counting again. But just like in English, counting becoming recounting also has the sense of telling a story. So you can also say narrating. So recounting can be both counting again as well as narrating or retelling something that has happened. And then break becomes really break, which has the sense of smash, like just kind of destroy this thing. Okay, so that's kind of the root of the PL pattern. The root meanings is intensification or repetition. Okay, now once in a while it can do some other stuff, and we're probably not going to be able to talk about that in this particular class. But this is definitely what to remember about the PL. Intensification or repetition. So other PL verbs that you have learned rarely appear in the PL. And then we've also been given 4 new PL verbs in this chapter. So you can see those right here. We have dalet beit resh, beit kof shin, tzade vav he, and beit resh kaf. Okay. Now these 4 rarely will appear in the pa'al pattern. So while it is possible that verbs appear in more than one pattern, you can see that it doesn't always happen, that some of these do not appear in the pa'al pattern, at least what we have attested in the biblical text. Maybe they talked with these, we don't really know, but they're not attested in the biblical text as appearing in the pa'al pattern. Most of them, some of them do just rarely. So let's take a closer look at this pattern, okay? Here's our verb chart that we've been working with for the past few chapters now. Here we have, well, so first let's kind of point out a few things. So the PL pattern, kind of the distinguishing mark for it, is this dagesh in the middle root letter, okay? So you can see that this dagesh, when it is able to be there, will always be in the middle root letter. Now I say when it's able to be there, because as we know, some verbs, or some letters, particularly gutturals, cannot take a dagesh, right? And so when that happens, you'll have to rely on the kind of distinct vowel patterns, okay? And one of those in the perfect is this hirik right here under the first. So you can kind of hear that as you say P-ale, right? You can see this hirik, this long I sound that makes E, right? Other things I'd like to draw your attention to is notice that these signal letters are pretty much what you're familiar with already. So great, right? You don't have to learn more things to distinguish the perfect from the imperfect. You already know kind of these endings, these prefixes right here. Okay. Now, there are some differences as we move over into these columns, though. You can see that the participle, notice there's only an active participle, no passive participle, is prefixed with a mem and a shavah. So actually, this will make it super easy to identify a participle in the PL. Okay. Let's see. One other thing, and then we'll kind of just go down this chart. In the imperfect here, notice instead of the hirik that we normally have in the pa'al, the cow stem, we have this hatef shavah because it's a guttural, and then the rest are just shavahs. Right? So that can kind of help you out with the imperfect to notice that it's a PL. Is it has the signal letter, but then it has a shavah underneath. Okay, well, let's go down this chart. So we have davarti, davarta, davart, dever, divra, divartnu, divartim, divarten, divru, divru. Okay, notice that E sound as we go down. Okay, in the imperfect, we have adaver, tadaver, tadvri, or tadavri, sorry, tadavri, yadaver, tadaver, nadaver, tadavru, tadav, sorry, tadaverna, yadvru, or yadavru, rather, tadaverna. So what can really help you in identifying this imperfect again is this dagesh in the middle, the second root letter. and the shava underneath the signal letter, or in the case of an aleph, which can't take a shava because it's a guttural, a hatef vowel. Okay, let's go to the participle now. We have madaver, madaverim, madaveret, madavrot. Okay, so again, this mem will help you identify it. Now the command, like in our other forms, is simply the imperfect minus the signal letters. Okay, so we have daver, davru, davri, daverna. Okay, so some of these will be pretty easy to identify. This davri and daverna are pretty distinct forms for the imperfect. Okay. The other two could be a little harder because you do really have to pay attention to these vowel patterns. And notice, okay, davru, that's not really something that sounds right in the PL. And if you don't know it's the PL, you can see this dagesh in the second letter, the second root letter. So hopefully that's helpful. Now the infinitives, here's our infinitive construct, would be le dever, and our infinitive absolute is dever. So in this case, notice that they are the same, and the way that you will know that is by context, or if the infinitive construct is prefixed with something, because remember the infinitive absolute cannot be prefixed. As well as, remember, infinitive absolutes will typically be with the same word again in a different form, or in some of those other patterns we talked about in chapter 21, was it? No. Yeah, 20. Okay. Oh, I had this pulled up though because I did want to show you. So see this heroic vowel underneath all of the regular imperfect forms. So I guess I should have had this kind of zoomed in for us, huh? And here in the PL, we have a shava instead. Okay, let's really quickly turn to how we can recognize the PL pattern. Okay, so we've kind of talked about that as we went through this chart, but let's see what the author has to say. Okay, so so the primary ways that the author is giving us is the dagesh in the middle root letter, the distinctive participle form with that mem shava, and we actually see that. Let's see, is that in chapter 21? Yep. Look at mitzvah. So the vowels are a little different, but you can see that this comes from our participle form, mitzvah. So this is it has become a noun. So the verb has become a noun through being a participle. Now the vowels have changed just a little bit, and we might be able to see some examples of that. So the distinct participle form should be easy, and then by the vowel rhythms. Now this is very helpful, but you'll have to train yourself to be able to recognize this vowel rhythm. And the way that you would do that is by just kind of repeating these charts. Okay, so divarti, divarta, divart, diver, divra, divarnu, divartim, divartin, divru, divru. I mean, just repeating that over and over again might sound a little silly, but it actually will help you. Okay. Also, though, notice where the emphasis is placed on some of these words. So we have this kind of accent mark here. So divarti. So this syllable right here, bar, is the emphasized one. So dibarti, dibarta, dibarnu. So in those words in particular. Okay. Okay, well, let's jump back down here. Well, so let's see some examples of how the meaning can change between the pa'al and the PL. Okay, so here we have hu shalak aved le'imo. So he sent a servant to his mother. Hu shilach et ha'avadim. He sent away the servants. So he set the servants free. Okay? So here we can see some of these distinctions between, we have the dagesh, right? And we have this hirik in the perfect. Okay, so looks like we have 7 distinctions here in particular the author wants to point out, or authors rather. So, first is the dagesh in the middle root letter. This is probably the most important and helpful one, but remember our guttural letters and our guttural look-alike, or act-alike rather, cannot take a dagesh. So when you come across those in the middle, you'll be more forced on the vowel rhythms rather than anything else, which will distinguish it from the pa'al pattern, because the rhythms are different if you know both well enough. Now, I'll even point out in the word pal itself, because this ayin is a guttural, it does not take the dagesh. So notice the dagesh is missing from even the word pl. Okay. In the perfect tense, we look for a hirik. We look for a hirik vowel. In the imperfect tense, we look for the hatef or the shava underneath the signal letters. In the participle, we look for a mem with a shava. And well, so this, I mean, should go without saying. For the commands, it's just the imperfect minus the signal letter, right? And then for the infinitives, oh, I guess they're just saying that there's a shava underneath any of the prepositions that come before in a construct infinitive. And then again pointing out what we pointed out earlier, there is no passive participle in the pal. Okay? And then these safar and bakash follow the same pattern as davar. Okay. Alright, so if you want to look at any word in particular that we have in our text in the PL, you can refer to pages 376 and 377. Now, the author wants to go through Beit Resh Kaf and Sade Vav Hey because there are some specific variations between them. One of which you might be able to see coming because we have a third Hey here. So if you remember, something happens as a third Hey takes a reversing Vav, especially in the imperfect, going back to the perfect. Right? So I'll let you think about that until we get there. Maybe create some suspense or something if you don't remember. Okay, so as we go down, notice this verb does not take a dagesh because our resh rejects gutturals rejects dageshes just like the other gutturals do. Okay, so let's see this. We have tziviti, tzivita, tzivit, tziva, tzivta, tzivinu, tzivitim, tziviten, tzivon, tzivu, tzivu. I found this one a little hard to say, actually. Okay, so that's our perfect. Let's jump over to Barak really fast. We have Barakti, Barakta, Barakt, Berek, Berka, baraknu, bayraktim, bayraktin, berku, berku. Okay, jumping to the imperfect, we'll have atsave, tatsave, tatsavi, yetsave, tetsave, netsave, tetsavu, tetsavena, yetsavu, tetsavena. One thing I didn't point out, but maybe as you heard me vocalize these, you noticed, is that this looks like a shurik, doesn't it? But it's not. This is the dagesh our vav. So this is not a shurik, even though it looks like a shurik, and sometimes is right next to a shurik. So this first one is just the dagesh in a vav, the next one is a shurik. Now how do you know? Well, vowels do not take other vowels, right? So you can't have a vowel on another vowel, and that wouldn't make any sense. This wouldn't be ui, this has to be v in that case, or vu when it's right next to each other like that. So tsivu, yetsavu, right? Going over to barak in the imperfect, we have abarak, tabarak, tabaraki, yabarek, tavarek, navarek, tavarku, tavarkna, or tavarekna, tavarekna. Some of these are kind of difficult. Yavarek, Yavarku, Tavarekna, Tavarekna. I don't know why I'm having such trouble with those. Here we have Metsave, Metsavu, Metsave, Metzava, Metzavim, Metzavot. Okay, notice the mem prefix. Mavarek, Mavereket, Maverakim, Mavarkot. And as commands, looks like we only have masculine ones. So we have tsav, tsavu. For barak, we have barik, baraki, baraku, barekna. Okay, looks like we're missing a form of the infinitive construct without a prefix of any sort. So it's not by itself ever, there's just the prefix. So we have letzavot, and then for barak we have barik, labarik, and then we have no infinitive absolute for tzava, but we do have barik, which again notice is the same as in the infinitive construct. Okay, last thing, and then we'll be done, is that our verb tsare vav hey, because it is a third hey verb, it does have a clipped form when there is a reversing vav. So here we have yetzave in the regular imperfect, then with a reversing vav becomes vaitsav. So it's clipped, that last hey comes off. So example of that, we have Moshe yetzave et ha'am, Moses will command the people. Vayetzav Moshe et ha'am, and Moses commanded the people. Right? Well, that'll be it for this video. Blessings to you. Have a great day.